Everyone, I am the Vibe Kage coming to you with a what if today. I don't know how this will work, and by that I mean I'm at work right now, and I might have to pause the video, then work, and then pause the video, and come back to it, pause the video, work, such and such. Now, let's just begin with how this story goes. Shortly after the day when Katsuki tells Izuku to do a swan dive off the roof. A swan dive. I think I said swan dive. Now, swan dive off the roof for a new quirk. Izuku does such events. In his notebook, he did write apology letter to his mom, and then off his backpack, he leaves it on the building, and then proceeds to just dive and fall. You see, during this timeline, Katsuki and his two goons, they would have been walking down the alley when all of a sudden they hear a splat. They're like, what the fuck? They run, they see. Katsuki sees Izuku's dead body, the splat mark. He sees how tall the building was, and he's just like, no way. The nerd did it. No. He's just like, in his mind, he's just thinking of the times that Izuku's always tried to be there for him, be a kind friend, and then Bakugo's just having memories of him being a dick to Izuku, blah, 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 blah. And then the very last thing that Katsuki remembers is him telling Izuku to do a swan dive off the roof in hopes that he could get a quirk in the next life. His two friends ended up vomiting and just ran away like little bitches. Bakugo, on the other hand, does call the police. He tells them the address. He walks away just for a bit. He is struggling to call Inko, so he doesn't call Inko right away. Instead, he calls his mom. He's hyperventilating. His mom's just saying, the fuck is wrong with you? And the only thing he could say is, Izuku killed himself. He jumped off of a building. I found his, tears are forming down his eyes. He can't finish it. His phone drops and it cracks. It doesn't break, but for the next 3 minutes, Bakugo's just crying, letting out this weird emotional trauma that he has. He's not sure why he cares so much, but seeing Izuku's death like this was not what he wanted. He always thought this quirkless nobody would, do something else with his life, but not this. Not like this. Sure enough, a man who caught this girl who was running away, he knocked her out, and, he just sees this young boy whose body's twitching ever so slightly. His breathing is ragged. Izuku's just like, this hurts so much. I can't feel my body, but I feel pain everywhere else. I can't move my arms. I can't breathe. It's so dark. It's so cold. If I knew that this is how it ends, I wouldn't have jumped. This pain. Sure enough, Overhaul would walk over to Izuku, one arm holding Eri, the other glove just kind of destroys itself because of his quirk. So he kneels down and he places a hand on Izuku's body, fixing him. Izuku would pass out from this as Overhaul, picks him up. Overhaul is just like, he doesn't know why, but he's going to take this body. He takes him, leaves. 5 minutes later, after Bakugo, not 5 minutes, but 3 minutes later, Bakugo, picks up the phone, because he hears his mom screaming at him over and over again, Katsuki! 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 More concern and more raw emotions in her voice building up. She's panicking and driving her way to where Inko is to try and get Inko to get Bakugo and have him explain what the fuck he means. Police show up. They look at Katsuki and they're asking him where's the body? They turn. They see the giant blood spatter, but there's no body. Time skip. It has been 10 months. Bakugo has, changed drastically. He doesn't smile, he doesn't show anger, Everyone who knew Bakugo was just surprised at, how he reacted, even though he was the one who told Izuku to jump. Which, yeah, this did cause a bit of a media storm. The death of a child's missing body, he jumps. Overhaul would find out, and, well, he would inform this mindless child that he saved, who has no memory, that his name is Izuku Midoriya, and, it doesn't matter your life in the past. Since I'm the one who saved you, your life is, mine. You obey me, and there is no other thing. If not, death. Which Izuku's just like, okay. He would be in charge of taking care of Eri, and yeah. Eri had grown really close to Izuku, seeing him somewhat as a, combination of both big brother and a father figure. Now, she is deeply attached to Izuku, and when Izuku tells her that, because she has a quirk, that doesn't make her a monster, and, if he could, he would totally switch places with her, which Overhaul would overhear, and it gave him an idea. Experimenting with Eri's blood and Izuku's body over and over again, a few other abilities from the other Chisaikai, seeing how that would work. In a sense, he was trying to see if, by rewinding Izuku's body a bit, and then implanting the DNA of somebody else, one of his own quirked individuals, he would try and see if Izuku could manifest the quirk, but it never really worked. However, Izuku's cells, after, constantly being torn apart, ripped up, and formed again, and forced a quirk into it that its body never really accepted and kind of rejected, causing Izuku to convulse, almost die, so Chisaki has to blow him up and reset him back to normal, and it continued on. That was Izuku's life for 3 months. The last 3 out of the 10 months, so yeah. When Overhaul realizes Izuku's body never took any of the quirks, he was ready to kill him until someone opened a smoky portal behind them. A man in a black suit, in a weird mask with a respirator on, he casually just walks to Overhaul as he's saying, My. So this is this boy. I wonder what the heroes would do if they find not 1, but 2 children being experimented on in such a way. Chisaki's ready to fight, but Overhaul's just saying, no. Lend me the boy. What? The boy. He's pointing to Izuku. Eri's clutching onto Izuku, and Izuku has that same, emotionless look on his face as he's holding on to Eri. Overhaul is just like, and why would I do that? All for One is over here like, because, my friend, what you have done failed only partially. There was some success that you did with Izuku's body. They're all confused because, well, he never developed a quirk. Yes, but you built him up over and over again. You made his body more durable than the quirks themselves. Chisaki's confused, as he's pretty much saying, you're rewinding Izuku back to a point before he was broken, adding a new ability. Ability doesn't work, so you destroy him and reset him again. But every time you destroy him, you still use that same material of the quirk within him. And Overhaul's just like, hold up, wait a minute, he's right. But he never developed a quirk. Overhaul is more pissed because he's just trying to figure out what the hell's All For One's game plan here. And see, All For One pretty much just tells him, Izuku's body is adapting beyond what a quirk and a quirkless person would be. He starts to open a portal, and this weird no-move creature, the big one that fights the USJ, shows up, and Izuku's just like, he sees it, and something in him just, changes. He gets up, he places Eri down, he gives Eri a small kiss on the forehead, telling her it's okay. Izuku walks to the Nomu. Overhaul and All For One are just watching him, as Izuku rams his hand through the Nomu's heart, ripping it out as he starts to eat the Nomu. Eri, she's not saying anything. The Nomu, it regenerates its lost heart, but once Izuku finishes eating it, he cocks back his fist and punches it right in the head, sending the brain clean off, like, plah! Brainstem severed, Nomu falls dead, and Izuku starts to eat the dead body of the Nomu. Within a few minutes, it's gone. Nothing. Bones even eaten by Izuku. All that's left was its weird shorts. Now, excuse me. Things change from this point on. You see, while Izuku is not a quirked person, he's something else entirely. Due to Overhaul's weird genetic fuck-ups with Izuku's body pretty much is acclimating to, for a different reference, I guess you could say, like Kaido in a sense, where his body is just getting too strong for any actual damage. Now, Izuku cannibalizing these Nomus and eating them, for him, it's just like, it's making his power grow. He gets stronger without actually needing to bulk up. Overhaul is confused on what exactly is this. All for one pretty much saying, Izuku is something else. You created your own monster. He smiles as he looks to Izuku, as he tells him, now Izuku's body can eat anything. He can consume everything. Quirked or no quirk, power is power, and he will turn it for himself. So they're thinking, so he's just physically augmented then, right? This is when, because I can, All for One explains that Izuku, you could feel it, can't you? He nods. They're like, what do you mean? Izuku explains how he could sense people around the house, not around the house, around the Chisaikai building. Everyone in the building and people outside. He could feel their pressure, the presence, their energy, their emotion, everything. He could just sense them like a sixth sense. All for One smiles in his mask as he explains to Overhaul, due to you rewinding something that technically never needed to be rewound and resetting something, Izuku is now stronger. Izuku will be the perfect specimen. All for One is just convincing Chisaki to hand over Izuku, in a sense to turn him into what Overhaul failed, a quirked soldier. Izuku just nods his head in agreement, saying he understands, and, he looks to Overhaul as he's saying, can he do this so he can protect Eri? Eri's eyes, there are tears as she realizes the past few months of her not being experimented on were all because of Izuku. So if Izuku's gone, will she get experimented on? This is where All for One explains that it won't take no more than a week or so for the operation itself, no more than a few hours. Recovery time, maybe just a week or two. We could leave him here and, yeah. So, experimentations are done on Izuku. Ones that the high-end Nomus that they would have created were pretty much eaten by Izuku. Every single Nomu. All of them. The only one that exists, the only two that exist right now are Gigantomachia and Kurogiri, technically. But, yeah. Dr. Ujiko was terrified at what Izuku was, because Izuku was not even something that he could predict that could happen with the quirk singularity. Compared to the quirk singularity factor, Izuku's on a much more dominant, danger level. He could literally consume every single person to gain more power, and no one would be able to stop him. Especially because, none of his current abilities are quirked. And, well, if quirk people, with their powers struggle against Izuku, then it's pretty much GG's. Because Izuku will not fall after he got in a few new quirks, which, yeah, regeneration and, well, healing. He can heal others besides regenerating himself. Then push forward that sixth sense of his with more quirks of sensory capabilities. Being able to feel other people's emotions. Being able to tell the exact temperature in rooms. Being able to manipulate certain atoms and materialize things from the air. Stuff like that. Nothing that boosts Izuku's physical strength, but all supporting type quirks that, would just make Izuku a monster. Now, in the events of UA, things are very different. You see, Katsuki would eventually, prove himself to one person, and this person was skeptical about Katsuki joining due to, what had happened with him and this boy that his body was never found. So, Katsuki proved himself to All Might that, yeah, he is a pretty good successor, better than what Mirio would be, since Mirio, in this timeline was more, not necessarily needing one for all, but it was just because, he was already so broken as shit, in a sense. Mirio was, trained up, so, yeah. Instead, he gave it to Bakugo, and he could see Bakugo's eyes, the determination, the resolve, to make sure that he could never lose a friend again. He never ever wants to let someone die like that. Such a gruesome thing. It snapped him out of his high horse. That whole, the world revolves around me, and you guys are just living in it. Now, rather, this affected Katsuki in the sense that, he is directly responsible for the death of his friend, and, nothing, and I do mean nothing, has subsided that conscious about him. He still wakes up with Izuku, splatting onto the ceilings. Here's the thing, he's had dreams where he's accepting the number one position only for Izuku's dead body to, fall from the sky, land right on the podium, be impaled and destroyed, and it just causes Bakugo to scream bloody nightmare. And yeah, Inko and Mitsuki, they've tried to consult not Izuku but Bakugo over what had happened, and they realize, yeah, it's not working out. He holds it too personally. Now, in UA, things go kind of different. You see, since no one's there to save Uraraka doesn't make it to Class 1A, and she's stuck in General Studies with Shinzo. So, yeah. Not only that, but there is something unique. When the USJ happens, there's no attack, and Kendo would replace Izuku's spot, because I like Kendo a lot. So, they continue on. There was no issues. Even though All Might showed up late as fuck to give some sort of informative speech, no one really attacked the USJ. Now, that's only because All For One has his secret weapon, and that is Izuku. He also has Gigantomachia as the backup, but meh. Sure enough, we time skip even more. Months have gone by. Izuku has harnessed his powers, and, he killed Shigaraki, which All For One was pissed at. But when Shigaraki tried to, crumble away Eri, in a sense, to get back at Izuku would not hesitate to destroy Shigaraki. Now, how he killed him was not something that most people would expect. Now, he grabbed Shigaraki's arms, the forearms, snapped them, and made him touch himself while his decay was active, causing Shigaraki to decay part of his chest. His arms are broken, he turned off his decay, but, it was still spreading throughout his body, and he was painfully screaming out. And Izuku was just like, allow me to put you out of your misery, as he just stomps Shigaraki's skull into a bloody mess. Brain matter and skull bits are just embedded into Izuku's shoes. He just wipes it off on Chisaki's shirt, and yeah, things get very gruesome. Now, Eri, in this timeline, she smiles. She's always happy when she's with Izuku, And, well, Overhaul kinda, you know, won't blow up Eri anymore. It's more just like, if she just gives me her blood, we're good. And yeah, only because Overhaul is afraid of Izuku, especially because he knows that Izuku's loyalty um, isn't necessarily 100% all for one or 100% Overhaul. Now, we time skip yet again. It is the day of the event of the Shiseikai. Sports festivals would have ended with Bakugo claiming number one spot, so that doesn't really change anything. Ida would be cut down by Stain since there is no Izuku to help him, which this, irritates Bakugo. And yeah, Class 1A has this weird, dark, ominous cloud within them. This allowed one person from 1B to be bumped up, and that person was Monoma, the guy who could copy other people's quirks. And, well, there was this weird, dirty look that he would get from other Class 1A people, and it wasn't until Aizawa told them all to shut the fuck up, stop acting like such immature little bastards. The way they're acting is why Ida died. So if they want to keep that shit up, get the fuck out of this goddamn school. Aizawa, just brutally honest with these motherfuckers. So, yeah. Now, people who are going to be in the raid with the big three on the Chisaikai raid, since there's no Uraraka in this timeline, it goes to Momo and Froppy. We still have Kirishima who's there, and now we have Bakugo. Bakugo and Mirio, they're both on a friendshipist thing. Mirio's been the first person since Izuku that Bakugo has seen that's just been the exact same with positivity and energy, and it annoyed the fuck out of him at first, only because it made him think of Izuku. And when Mirio confronted him about it and found out about this Izuku person, he did apologize, but now's the best time to honor Izuku's, hero dreams. Isn't that what you're doing this for now too, partially? Did you not take on his dream along with your own? Bakugo would realize that he did, and yeah, that's why their friendship is just like, meh. So, yeah. Anyway, the event of the raid. They're there, and Izuku is ready. So, before any of them, and I do mean any of them, enter the premise, one person opens the door, and it just terrifies Bakugo. Because he sees him in a Plague Doctor mask, too. He recognizes the green curly hair, and even though his freckles are some of his freckles are hidden, there are still two that he could see, instantly just knows. But the look in Izuku's eyes, the emotionless, the lifeless, just utter death in his eyes. Izuku looks at the cops and all the heroes. They're looking at Bakugo like, what's wrong? And when he says that's Izuku, his friend who supposedly died almost a fucking year ago, Izuku, he tilts his head. Everyone is just like, he's looking at us. What do we do? Before the cop could say anything about, we're here for such and such, and we're going to do this. Yeah, hold up. Phone